Hello, yes, that's right. I'm here with the 2018 BMW M5. It's been overhauled for 2018. It features new styling, more power, a new transmission, and for the first time on an M5, all-wheel drive. Pricing starts at about $102,000. This one, as equipped, is almost $130,000. Some of the options this one comes with include these 20-inch wheels, the M driver's package, which raises the top speed to 189 miles an hour. It also has the executive package. Standard equipment on the new M5 is this lightweight carbon fiber reinforced plastic roof. I would say the most noticeable and the most expensive option on this particular M5 are these carbon ceramic brakes. They're absolutely massive, and they cost $8,500. They also reduce unsprung weight by about 51 pounds. The newest M5 still has a 4.4 liter twin turbo V8, but this newest version of it features new twin scroll turbochargers and redesigned exhaust manifolds that do a better job of channeling exhaust gases to the turbos themselves. Cooling has also been upgraded, which is a great idea for a car like this. Output is up by 40 horsepower to 600 flat. Torque is up by 53 pound-feet to 553. All of that power is routed through a new 8-speed Steptronic transmission. Standard feature on the M5 is this set of quad exhaust pipes and this cool rear diffuser. My press loaner is equipped with the executive package, which includes some creature comforts, including the soft closed doors, always a nice touch, massaging seats in the front. There you see the different modes. There's 3 levels of intensity. And of course, the front seats are heated and ventilated as well, and the back seats, as part of the package, are heated. My press car is also equipped with this $3,400 Bowers & Wilkins audio system. It's got 16 speakers and 1,400 watts of power. You can't see it right now because it's daytime, but at night, these speaker grills light up and they look like some sort of really cool alien life form. There are a variety of sound profiles that you can set the system to. I've mainly just been using Studio, and it's been great. One thing I really noticed about it is how clear and rich the bass is. It's clear, it's just easy to listen to. It's got a presence, but it's not an annoying or intrusive one. One of the biggest changes to the M5 for 2018 is the inclusion of all-wheel drive. BMW calls it M xdrive. So it's a rear-biased all-wheel drive system that can also be put into two-wheel drive. If you're familiar with the shifter that BMW puts in the new 5 Series, you'll notice that the one in the M5 is a little different. It's a little chunkier, not so much a blade as it is an actual knob. Pretty cool metallic trim there. One of the biggest changes is this rocker switch here that allows you to adjust how quickly the transmission shifts. So you can make it slow it down a little here, smooth it out, or speed it up by hitting this one on the right. The only catch to that is that the parking button is a little out of the way. And right here you can change the behavior of the engine, the suspension, and steering. You can go from efficient or comfort to sport and then sport plus just by hitting these buttons. And then you can set up everything up here. So what this means, configure M1 and M2, means what settings you store in these handy buttons on the steering wheel. So right now, I've got the left button set up to use the M dynamic mode for the stability control, and the sport setting for the all-wheel drive system, and then the sport settings for the steering. This is the automatic mode, but just sped up. I have M2 set up to run the most aggressive settings this car offers. Dynamic stability control completely off, and then the xDrive system, as you can see, is in two-wheel drive, and then the engine, chassis, all of that, those are in their most aggressive settings. And then the transmission is at its fastest shift times. You can also change how vocal the exhaust system is by pressing this button here. So before we get started here, I just wanted to talk a little about the basis of this car. So M5 to me implies that it's a dual purpose machine. The M part of its name means that it should be an engaging, thrilling, exciting sports sedan. The 5 means that it's based on a 5 Series. It's based on a regular volume production, relatively practical and affordable car. Just depends on how you define affordable. Because of that, the M5, I think, should try to retain some of the everyday livability, practicality, and comfort of the regular 5 Series. To me, that's not only logical, but it's a great thing if it does, because the regular 5 Series, to me, is a great car. Last year I drove the 530i, which in the 5 Series lineup is the entry-level model in terms of power and positioning. And I thought it was fantastic. I loved the way it looked. I loved the amount of power it had. It was a turbo 4-cylinder, but to me that was plenty in that car. I loved the way the transmission was tuned and the brakes. Within a few miles of driving it, I thought this car just feels right. It was comfortable, it was set up the right way, just everything seemed to be in the right place and in the right amount. So I think the M5 should have some of that innate, natural charm to it, you know, because that's what it's based on. It shouldn't throw away its 5 Series DNA. To start off, I've just got the M5 in its most basic settings. Everything's relaxed. The suspension is in comfort mode, steering's in comfort mode, the engine is nice and sedate as a 600 horsepower V8 can be, at least. And I even have the active exhaust off. So you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it where you are, but in the cabin I can just hear a faint roar from the engine. So it's basically just like driving a regular 5 Series that happens to have a V8. I mean, you know it's there, but it's not incredibly loud or anything. It's just there in the background, nice and subtle. But you can still feel the pull. It just takes just a little bit longer, obviously, to get to the power, but when you do, you're hooking up with all 4 wheels. Like this, it's hard to really tell a big difference between the M5 and a more everyday 5 Series. With the exception of the V8 sound, you know, it's very civilized, calm, easy to drive, comfortable. Ride quality is good. It's nice and smooth, it's quiet. So now I'm going to put it in M1 mode, and I have that set to the 4-wheel drive sport mode. All right, gets up to speed in a hurry. So this 4-wheel drive sport mode backs off the stability control a little bit, gets a little looser, more playful. Going from regular all-wheel drive to the sport version of all-wheel drive to 2-wheel drive, the biggest difference I can tell is in the steering. It just seems to get progressively more playful, a little looser, a little more ready to party, you know. But with that comes increased responsibility. And so all the other settings in this that I've put into this M1 mode are sport tunes. So the engine tuning, the suspension, the steering, those are all set to sport. So that contributes obviously to, you know, the car's behavior as well. So pretty soon here, hit some twisting roads. Pretty much everybody in this neighborhood's gonna know that we're coming through. Got the active exhaust opened up. Now what I found about this new 8-speed automatic is that it does a pretty damn good job of keeping up with curves in the road and my throttle inputs. It's not quite telepathic, but you know, I've driven it enough in its different modes. So you've got, you know, regular drive, and then you've got the full manual mode, and then you can adjust the quickness of the shifts in both of those modes. So right now I've got everything set to sport, including the M xdrive all-wheel drive system, and then I've got the transmission in its regular drive mode, but set to the fastest shifts available. With this, I found, like, going through a curve, you know, obviously it'll hold the gear, but then when I back off the throttle and just give it partial throttle, after about a second or so, it'll sense that, and then it'll change gear, you know, which to me is great because, you know, it's getting in that sweet spot. It's getting to where I need it to go, and it does it pretty quickly. It's just short of reading my mind. It gives itself that sort of grace period to where, you know, if you decide to get back on the throttle again, it's ready to go. So it's just got that slight delay to, you know, give itself an option depending on your throttle application, and then it'll, you know, get into the right gear. And of course, going into these more aggressive settings, the steering takes on a little bit more weight, but it doesn't feel artificially heavy. It just feels right. It doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel overloaded. It doesn't really even feel synthetic. It just, there's something about it that feels natural. And this is something that recently became very clear to me. And it was not in a sports car or a sports sedan or anything like that. It was in a luxury crossover. I was driving it through some twisty roads, and in its defense, it was not meant to be a sport-tuned, performance-focused vehicle. It was supposed to be luxurious and comfortable and well-appointed, and it was. But for some reason in that vehicle, I just realized speed does not necessarily equate to driving enjoyment. I could have been doing twice the speed limit and still had no fun at all, because the steering was very numb, the brakes were fluffy, and again, you know, this was supposed to just be a luxury vehicle, and it did that very well. But I still, you know, became aware that speed isn't necessarily the same as fun. A lot of that comes down to steering. When a car's steering offers resistance, and you gotta, you know, not fight it, but work with it, you develop that connection with the car. The M5 has that. If I do have a criticism about this car, it's that the brakes can be a little touchy, especially at lower around town speeds. The brakes will be progressive up to a certain point, and then they just snatch. You know, so it can be things can get a little herky-jerky. So you've got to have a light touch on the brakes. Of course, in a car like this, you want strong, responsive brakes, but I've had a couple of experiences in this so far that made me realize, hey, you know, you got to be careful what you wish for, because in this car, when it comes to, you know, braking power, you might get a little bit more than what you expected. The M5 has a fixed lip spoiler in the back, but man, when you mash down on the pedal, it's like throwing a barn door up to catch air. A road like this and a car like this just makes me think about driving all day long. This car is comfortable. You know, I could you know, travel cross country in this car, no problem. But it's more than that. It's just how pleasant this car is to drive. I just enjoy it. You know, and it's not because, oh, it's a flagship 5 Series, it's an M model, it's expensive. And those things are nice, don't get me wrong. They all factor into it, at least on a subconscious level. But I just enjoy this car because it's comfortable and it's well equipped. You know, you can get basically every creature comfort that the 5 Series offers in this car, but with 600 horsepower and all the performance upgrades that the M5 comes with. One exception, of course, being a sunroof, because this has the carbon fiber reinforced plastic roof, but that's a nice trade-off. I don't mind that. But you know, you got ambient lighting, massaging seats, navigation, an Apple CarPlay, soft closed doors, power rear sunshade. You know, there's really no catch to this car. It really is a case of more is more. This keeps everything that I love about the regular 5 Series, but just adds power and performance to them. Okay. So we're hitting the road in the M1 setting. So I've got that set to about mid-range. Everything's in sport, and the M xdrive all-wheel drive is set to its sport mode. So the stability control backs off a little bit. Man, the throttle response is great. Pretty much right when I want to get into it, it's ready to go. It just seems to keep going and going. I will say the exhaust sounds great, but it's not terribly distinctive. It doesn't seem to have a signature sound, but whatever sound it makes is a great one. Now what I'm going to do is switch to M2. So what I have stored in M2 are this car's most aggressive settings. So stability control is off, it reverts to rear wheel drive, and every other system in this car is set to Sport Plus. So push it once, push it again to confirm. Now it switches over. And I also have it set up to where it's in manual mode. Shifts are instant. And at these speeds, the shifts are surprisingly smooth. I thought they would be a lot more harsh, a lot more forceful, but they're very smooth, very relaxed. I think that civility would vanish somewhat at higher speeds, but you know, in these public road speeds, it's surprisingly smooth. And you feel some suspension bob, you know, it's tighter, the suspension tightens up, but you know what that allows you to do is, you know, get a feeling of the road surface underneath. Now, a few days ago, I put this car in M2 mode, rear wheel drive, the works, and I noticed it seemed to loosen up. The steering got a little more playful, a little livelier. Experiencing that and experiencing how this car is in its most sedate setting and its sort of mid-range setting, I have to say this car comes across as a best of both worlds kind of vehicle. Overall, I'm really impressed with it. The performance is satisfying, it's plenty of power. The steering is well tuned. The brakes, you know, once you get up to a certain speed, they seem to lose their nervousness. The transmission does a great job of keeping up with what I want, what I'm inputting, and the road ahead. The M5 also manages to keep the charm and civility of the regular 5 Series. I love that car, and the M5 keeps all of the lovable traits of the 5 Series and just adds more power and performance. All of that adds up to a lovable, comfortable, livable, but also thrilling and exciting and competently put together performance machine. Thanks for watching There Will Be Cars. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.